Uh-oh. Motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that newly crowned WBO minimum weight champion Sarah Bormann is set to return to action in late April against an opponent that has yet to be announced in a promotion from Dream Boxing that just so happens to have a DAZN deal, broadcast deal, and they air their fights here in America. Sarah Bormann became a world champion in her last fight after Senicia Estrada's unexpected retirement after all the belts went vacant. Yuko Kuroki of Japan ended up picking up the WBA, Yo Costa Valle ended up picking up the WBC, and Sarah Bormann, in her last fight, picked up the WBO, and she is now set to defend it for the first time in April.
The IBF title, the vacant IBF title, that was supposed to be contested for this weekend with Sol Kudos and Sol Baumstar, but apparently Sol Kudos has fallen ill and they're looking to reschedule that match.
Don't know when that's supposed to be going down, but we do know when Sarah Bormann is supposed to be returning to action in late April, sporting a professional record of 19 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 7 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 20 professional bouts. She doesn't look it, but she's very experienced.
She's been around.
Best described as a mid-range to inside pressure fighter, volume puncher. She suffered her first professional loss to Mexico's own Jessica Niri Plata back there in December of 2023, but she has since put distance between herself and that loss, rebounding by beating Tamara DeMarco, then Jennifer Meza last year.
Now back in the winner's bracket and a reigning, defending world champion in what is a very deep division.
You have the world champions to account for, the reigning world champions like Yuko Kuroki and Yo Costa Valle, but what about Yo Costa's little sister, Naomi Valle? She campaigns at this weight too, and she's coming along.
What about Yadira Bustillos?
Sarah Bormann actually fought Yadira Bustillos some time ago, gave her her first professional loss. Yadira is going to be in action this weekend opposite the ring Tamara DeMarco, a common opponent between her and Sarah, and if she wins that fight,
could be looking at a rematch.
Yadira Bustillos is ranked at number 1 via the WBO, the same sanctioning body that Sarah's a champion with.
Deep waters.
In what is a very deep division, it behooves Sarah Bormann to stay active and stay sharp, because it's not just the champions she's got to keep an eye out for. It's the contenders as well. I say it all the time. There's winning a title, and then there's keeping it. Because as soon as you've got it, that paints a target on your back that those contenders are gunning for.
You stay ready so that you don't have to get ready.
Sarah Bormann will be returning to action in the not-so-distant future against who, I don't know, but it's good that she's getting off to an early start this year. We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
Y'all about to sit here on y'all Saturday morning and pay $40 for this bullshit-ass pay-per-view with no superstar on it. With no superstar. Y'all sick. All you Riyadh dancers sick as hell. That turkey Alalshikh about to make you twerk for this pay-per-view. They gonna sit there and dance for the turkey. Y'all know what it is, man. March 1st, man. Tap in. PBC, we got a banger for y'all.
This ain't worth $25 no more. This ain't worth.
Yo, this shit not even worth $5, nigga.
That particular caller, a regular on the Boxing Voice that goes by the name Tip Bayless.
Or like Tip Brainless.
You see how he's disparaging Turkey's pay-per-view because he views him as the ops, the opposition for Al Heyman, exaggerating about what the pay-per-view costs. He says it's $40 when in reality, it's less than that. It's $25. It's affordable for everybody.
Less than a trip to the movies.
He's doing that because he's got to disparage it somehow, so he'll exaggerate about what the pay-per-view costs,
Try to make it seem like it's too expensive.
simultaneously trying to work as an arm of promotion for Gervonta Davis's pay-per-view next month, which costs more than 3 times as much as this weekend's. If there's a price point that needs to be justified, it's that one. Why does Gervonta Davis's pay-per-view cost $80?
Tomorrow's is only $25, and it's full of better fights than that one.
Nobody asked him to fight Lamont Roach. Why should you have to pay $80 to watch him box a pro box fighter? A guy who was literally on YouTube in his last fight. Make it make sense.
You can't.
People like Tip Bayless often don't. They're not sensical or sensible people. Do you think a guy whining about a $25 pay-per-view is going to shell out $80 for another one, more than 3 times as much, the following month?
No.
He said we've got a banger. He was talking about Gervonta Davis's pay-per-view. Do you actually think he's going to buy it?
No.
Y'all know what it is, man. March 1st, man. Tap in. PBC, we got a banger for y'all.
He's not going to buy Gervonta Davis's fight, and if by some chance he does, he's a bigger idiot than I thought, because why would you pay $80 for that and simultaneously trash this? There's something in tomorrow's show for everybody, but not for you?
I take it you're not much of a boxing fan, then.
I mean, you can't be if you take issue with tomorrow's show that's got something from the lightweight division, the junior middleweight, the middleweight division, the light heavyweight division, the heavyweight division. There's something on there for everybody.
Just not for you, because you're not actually a boxing fan.
You can't be. No boxing fan with 2 functioning brain cells would have any issues with tomorrow's card, but you feel like you're part of a team. See, you think you're Team PBC and Al Heyman. You live vicariously through them.
While stealing from them.
Because you don't buy shit. And everybody knows you don't buy shit.
You don't contribute nothing to the sport.
You're the reason at Bodega's got those mirrors on every corner to make sure you're not stealing a soda and potato chips. The reason Rite Aid started locking up the shampoo and deodorant.
That's you.
What kind of 7-layer loser can't afford a $25 pay-per-view? And don't pretend that you can, because if you could, you wouldn't be calling into the boxing voice complaining about it.
Bum.
A misguided bum, because what you're actually advocating for is for Al Heyman to charge you 3 times as much for what is a weaker show.
Do you think you sound charming or funny?
These laughing idiots that call into the boxing voice and they're so happy with themselves, so satisfied, that don't actually represent anything
to anyone.
What is the most vocal demographic within the American boxing scene also happens to be the one that contributes the least.
You don't buy shit. You don't buy turkey shit. You don't buy our shit. You don't buy nothing.
My hat goes off to Nesta Gibbs because I don't know how he does it, having to regularly deal with these morons and mongoloids, platforming them, giving them a place to voice their opinions that don't count for much. No, they don't count for nothing.
While I was watching him react to Tip Bayless's commentary,
I don't presume to be a mind reader, but it looked like Nesta Gibbs was thinking to himself, Jesus Christ.
What a moron.
So what do you guys out there buy? Because we know that Nesta Gibbs' co-host, Two-Tone the Superstar, he plans on stealing tomorrow's pay-per-view like he steals the vast majority of pay-per-views.
He's gonna steal a $25 pay-per-view? You don't have $25?
And this is a guy who spends his entire day talking about boxing on various social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
You don't have $25?
Let me stop sounding so serious because I don't take these people serious. These are not serious people of any substance.
Break it down.
Some of the biggest channels in the YTBC have guys like Tip Bayless as their subscriber base. Those are the guys that watch those videos. Coincidentally, those guys don't buy shit. So the people that you're talking to,
if you're a Boxing Ego or a Dante's Boxing Nation, an Aki TV,
you know the type, and you know that while those channels get very good metrics for the dribble they upload,
Southpaw, whatever his name is,
the dirty little secret is that for as many subscribers as they have, those guys aren't actually customers. They are not actually customers within the sport of boxing, so you don't actually have the influence you think you have.
And your perception of the boxing landscape is skewed.
Why do you think they didn't see Fox's departure from the sport coming? Or Showtime's departure from the sport?
Oh, I know that if you ask them about it now, they're going to do the Monday morning quarterback thing.
But why do you think they didn't see it coming? And why do you think these are the same people that told you 5 years ago that DAZN would go bankrupt, that DAZN would go under?
It was them.
Why do you think that their perception of the landscape is such a far deviation from what it actually is.
Well, it's the people that you pander to.
For them, you are a deviation from the norm. For them, you act as a deviation from reality, which, by definition, makes them delusional.
Because here's reality.
Turki Alalshikh is who you wish Al Heyman was. Turki Alalshikh is who you pretend Al Heyman is.
Who he's supposed to be.
Idiots like you have been blowing smoke up everybody's ass about Al Heyman for years. But after getting kicked off of several networks transatlantically at that,
He's down to just 5 shows in a single calendar year, 4 of which were pay-per-views. If he keeps on that schedule, guys like you ain't gonna have nothing to watch, since you don't like anything else.
content creators themselves better find something new to talk about since Javante might retire this year. The PBC aren't doing that many shows.
Your audience isn't into international boxing, world boxing.
It's like what happened after Deontay Wilder lost to Tyson Fury. Entire channels shut down. The ones that stuck around started talking about other things, other sports.
They weren't interested in boxing anymore because their stake in it.
Their prized stallion broke a leg.
More of the same after Errol Spence Jr. was throttled by Terrence Crawford.
Make no mistake, this anti-Turki Alalshikh movement is the last gasp of a vocal minority that very soon may not even watch boxing anymore.
Which is no loss to the sport because you bums don't buy shit anyway.
So laugh it up. Lap it up while you still can. The brand of boxing you like is fast becoming irrelevant. And I don't expect that Javante's upcoming pay-per-view is going to do any more numbers than the last one did.
No matter what lies you want to tell yourself and others.
You don't matter. Let's talk about Stevenson versus Padley. Josh Padley, who took this fight on short notice, very short notice, and nobody's expecting much. No, the bar of expectation and the bar of standard is set before Shakur Stevenson, the 3-weight champion.
Pound for pound to some.
He's under pressure. Don't think that he isn't. Because against a guy like this, you're not just expected to win, you're expected to dominate. Hell, even though you're not a puncher, you are expected to knock him out. That you should at least be able to knock a guy like this out, who hasn't had a full camp, he wasn't getting ready for you.
He's not even a full-time boxer. He's a part-time boxer and a full-time electrician.
Nothing against him and nothing against an honest day's work, but that's basically saying that you're not a part-time guy, Shakur. You're a full-time boxer. This is your bread and butter. This is what you do and what you're supposed to be good at the level which you compete. You're supposed to be able to stop a guy like this, and you better if you know what's good for you.
Justify the hype.
As the previous era of boxing now comes to a close and a new one begins, you're noticing a shift. That people are moving away from these Mayweather wannabes, these Mayweather clones, these fence and fiddle and finesse fighters.
It's not doubting the effectiveness of that base style because it is effective, it's just not entertaining.
Though still very effective. If it weren't, you wouldn't see as many people avoiding a fight with Shakur as they are, and it's quite a few.
A tough puzzle to solve.
He's effective in what he does, and he's efficient. Now he needs to find a happy medium to also be entertaining. And against a guy like this, you should be at least able to do that. I don't want 36 minutes of you versus Josh Padley.
You better knock this guy out. You better get rid of this guy and make it quick.
Let's hope he does, or a shitstorm will ensue shortly after.
Ortiz versus Madrimov.
You know, I wouldn't stake my reputation on forecasting any of the outcomes of tomorrow's fights because, on paper, they could go either way. Though at the same time, where's the fun in straddling the fence? Like a rec center party, the real fun's on the dance floor.
Not on the wall, being a wallflower, and so...
I'm gonna go with Israel Madrimov. I'm gonna go with Israel Madrimov in a fight that I think could go either way. Nothing would surprise me, but I had one last look at both boys. One last look at Madrimov in the Crawford fight where he was really crafty and really aggressive, and one last look at Virgil Ortiz against Bohachuk,
where he looked like a man caught in a storm.
And I want to say that any of you guys out there that are going with Virgil, I completely understand, but I guess what did it for me is how unorthodox and unconventional Israel Madrimov is, how tricky.
The way he gestures with his hands, giving you an unclear target as he comes forward, bouncing back and forth and forward.
In an attempt to draw your lead so that he can counter it, and that's when he's bearing down on you. If you're bearing down on him, then he doesn't have to do any of that, and he can just catch and counter.
I think his feet are a major problem.
That Soviet pendulum step and bouncing back and forth the way that he does, to where if you're bearing down on him, he can take that half step back and counter you as you try for a shot. And if you're the guy hanging back, if you're the one circling away and he's bearing down on you, you don't know when he's gonna jump in to try for a shot of his own.
That pendulum step in his herky-jerky style creates an air of spontaneity, whereas Virgil is a bit easier to understand.
He's more conventional. You see more of what you expect. He's a very good mid-range to inside fighter.
Volume puncher.
But it's not like he can't be caught, because he was caught by Igor Kavaliauskas at welterweight. He was caught by Sergei Bohachuk 2 times in his last fight. Both boys are on the same schedule. They both last saw action in August of last year, and we haven't seen them since then.
The drawback for Virgil is that style made him a very authoritative guy at 147, where he seemed to pack a bigger punch, but at 154, the power just doesn't look the same. Not against the bona fide junior middle.
Not with Bohachuk, who's been knocked out before.
Israel Madrimov brings aggression to the table, the same as Virgil Ortiz, with more craftiness and more suddenness.
He's just so herky-jerky, bouncing back and forth on his toes, moving his head, moving his torso, changing levels.
I think he's gonna knock Virgil out.
I know that I could be wrong. We could all be wrong. Hell, I could crap out on this entire card!
I know that!
But I think Israel is just too crafty for Virgil, and that's what did it for me. I think his style is much harder to read.
And should frustration set in for Virgil where he just tries to charge him, he could get caught.
Let's look at this from both sides.
Do it.
If Virgil's gonna win this fight, it's gonna be by outworking Israel Madrimov. That if he throws punches and bunches and he looks the busier man within the round, he can win it on activity. That maybe Israel is spending too much time moving around, just too much movement for the sake of movement, and you're not doing enough, so you lose a points decision. That's one way that Virgil can win.
One way it could happen.
The other way it could happen, Israel's too bouncy, too fleet of foot, too hard to read for Virgil, so he tries for shots before he's in position to land them and gets caught coming in. The way he was fighting for dominance deep in the pocket with Sergei Bohachuk, tucked behind his guard and trying for shots.
Hooks, uppercuts.
And looping backhands. Sergei Bohachuk was happy to meet him there and oblige him, where Israel is a bit craftier than that. He's the kind of guy who might step to the side of you, try to hit you in the blind spots, or take a half step back to counter you as you come forward.
He may not play your game the way you want him to.
Because he moves so goddamn much, and that's what stands out about Israel to me. His movement is a problem.
It could be.
I wouldn't stake my reputation on forecasting the outcomes of any of these fights, because on paper, they could go either way. There's a good argument on either side. But on my side, I'm gonna go with Israel, and I'm gonna go with Israel by way of knockout off a hard counter.
Intangibles.
I saw Virgil Ortiz make some mention of potentially moving up to middleweight, and I thought to myself, why would he have that on his mind ahead of this fight when he's so close to fighting for a title? Is it that he's struggling to make the weight already?
Is he tight?
Was it hard to get there? Because if it was, that manifests in your punch resistance or the lack thereof, your power or the lack thereof.
I just don't like the optics of a guy who's at 154, who's close to fighting for a title at 154, is now courting the idea of moving to 160.
I don't like how that sounds, and I don't like how that looks, so once again, I'm gonna go with Israel by way of knockout.